Before we get started, I'd like to say a huge thank you for all your continued support. Please click like and subscribe to keep up to date with all my new videos and releases. Let's get on to the Q&A.
SenseDumb5417 asks, could you provide a save state of your build once released? One thing that baffled me about Just Bring It is the massive save file required.
Yes, I will absolutely release a save file with the Just Bring It mod. Absolutely. So everything will be unlocked. You can just play to your heart's content. No worries. Yeah, I know the size is a real pain, but I mean, with emulators, it's no real problem. And if you're playing on original hardware on PS2, I mean, you don't have to, you can delete it after you're done playing. But yeah, I will absolutely include it, so you don't have to unlock anything. You can play through story just to enjoy it. So I hope that answers your question.
M1 Biggie Mac asks, did you ever notice Kane has a different mask and hair at 2750 compared to the final release?
Yes, I did notice. The reason I didn't speak about that is because if you managed to catch something in the last Rebuilding Smackdown episode, I say at the end, I hope you enjoyed this longer edition of Rebuilding Smackdown. Now, that is because Rebuilding Smackdown episode 2 was originally an hour and 15 almost put together. But when I was watching it back, I felt like I was more making a video game documentary about video games in 2001 as a whole. And when I was talking about the differences in Kane and Raven, they got cuts because they were mentioned in a different segment, and I didn't remember till later, and after I'd already published the video. But yes, the Kane with the different mask and the Raven with the different t-shirt that was in the earlier builds are both the default attires for the Just Bring It patch. So Just Bring It Definitive Edition. So yeah, but good eye, real good eye.
After an awesome compliment, Harry Stevens writes, I also hated that rock bottom. Is there any moves from Smackdown 2 worth porting over to this and Shut Your Mouth?
Will I be porting moves over into Smackdown Shut Your Mouth? The answer is yes. You will see quite a few new moves in Smackdown Shut Your Mouth. So certain things that were taken out or changed last minute will be back in, just like they always are.
Eric Mirrell writes, did you fix this game's glitch that randomly resets the game to default after some time for finishing and unlocking everything?
As far as my testing goes, that bug is completely gone. I have thought about releasing like a test to a limited amount of people before doing a mass release of that, just to make sure that, through tons of play, there is no sudden glitch. But as far as I can see, there is no glitch whatsoever.
Everyone kind of asked, will you add other characters into Just Bring It? Other guys without replacing them? You sort of mentioned that you would fix the missing character issue. What are your plans? Starboy also asked a question similar to this, but unfortunately due to circumstances I was unable to recover the message he sent me. So Starboy, if you're listening, PM me on Twitter and I will answer any question you like.
Yes, that is the long-term plan for Just Bring It. The Just Bring It edition that you saw in Rebuilding Smackdown episode 2 is done. It's basically going to go up for download. Obviously, we'll probably go to Patreon first and then everyone else a bit after, but yes, it's going to go up, and probably like almost any day now. Like I just need to have some time. I just need to get some time, and it's going to go up. It'll probably go up even before Here Comes the Pain, to be honest, because it's there, it's finished. I'm just going to go bang. I don't even need to test it. And after that, yeah. So in the preview build, most of those slots are completely unlocked, and the people that come out with different names, so say Just Incredible or X-Pac, they come out with an alternate Tristratus model, and it's a different assign number, and all the renders for those people are Jerry Lynn. So there's multiple slots. So my idea with that is, at some point, make new models. So, looking at something like SmackDown 2 and WWF Royal Rumble, and looking those as examples and being like, okay, so texture-wise and everything else, what could I grab? And realistically, I mean, I would want D'Lo Brown, Godfather, Al Snow, Mankind. Even I know Foley's in there, but I'd like Mankind in there. Road Dogg, Jesse James, X-Pac. It would probably, I mean, the way I'm looking at it, it would likely be a Backlash 2000 slash all the way up to maybe No Mercy roster, just because those models would be the easiest to do. I think Haku and stuff might be a bit more complicated because, then again, actually, no, because you could get textures from Rule 1. I don't know. I haven't decided the full who I would want yet, because this was just something I'd been thinking about, just musing over for the last couple of months. But in time, I will absolutely look into that. I've been talking to a couple of people who've only just started taking a look at Just Bring It, who are very, very familiar with Smackdown 2, and they've come up with the same thing, saying that architecture is relatively the same. Just yes, it's different for PS2, but I mean it's not too much different. And obviously the arcade and Dreamcast Royal Rumbles, yes, there are it is different files, but I mean you can very much use those higher res textures if you want that stuff. So we'll see. Of course, it'll be sculpting new models and stuff, but I think long-term plan. So at some point next year, I'd hope to have Just Bring It with more characters. Yeah. So there you go.
Liam DeFancio asks, Q&A vid question: would you be able to move these different rock bottoms into the SmackDown vs. Raw games?
So will I be able to move the rock bottoms I featured in last episode into the SmackDown vs. Raw series? Unfortunately not. Move-wise, Here Comes the Pain, SmackDown vs. Raw, and SmackDown vs. Raw 06, they're compatible with each other. Shut Your Mouth, Just Bring It, and SmackDown 2 seem to work with each other. And then SmackDown vs. Raw 07 onwards, I assume they all work together, but I never really liked those games too much, especially when they changed the controls to the stick controls. So I'm really unsure on those games. I know the rock bottoms will not work in those games though, but I don't know too much about them. There will be rebuilding SmackDown for 07 and 08, but they will be very much restoration episodes and more documentary focused episodes rather than anything I've done, purely because what I would have done to those games are absolutely minor. There will be two versions of both of those though. There will be an Xbox 360 and a PS2 version. So there's a little info.
Marlon Anthony asked a question about SmackDown vs. Raw. The thing that drove me insane the most was the fact that they removed winning animations. I never could find out why. Do you have any insight on this? And is there any win animations on the disc left over from Here Comes the Pain? And of course, could they be even restored?
It drove me crazy too. It was more because of the development cycle that they removed win poses from SmackDown vs. Raw. As I've scripted out and will cover in Rebuilding SmackDown vs. Raw, they had this was not necessarily the plan going forward. It was something that sort of molded into what the game became due to, again, a lot of what was happening on WWF TV, or WWE TV rather, a lot of releases, a lot of changes, and then also trying to go with higher poly models, better graphics than Here Comes the Pain, even though I felt like they could have stuck with SmackDown Shut Your Mouth's graphical style for a good couple of years. But we were moving into an era where Ukes were being pressured by THQ to praise the critical elements of the video game industry. So your IGNs, your GameSpots and things like that, where they would take more what reviewers were saying and less of what the fan reaction was to these games. And you'll note that there's a huge decline in sales after around SmackDown vs. Raw 2007, especially in terms of demographic of audience. So I hope that somewhat answers your question. The reason they're not there is because I don't think they were ever made. I don't think they had the time to. So I don't think they could be restored because there is no place for them, if that makes sense. Hope that answers your question, Marlon.
Edgy Eddie asks, these Definitive Edition mods that you put out are awesome. I'm excited for the Here Comes the Pain Definitive Edition. Do you have any idea of when that will be released?
So when is SmackDown Here Comes the Pain Definitive Edition releasing? Well, within the next 2 weeks, absolutely, it should be done. I'm in the final stages of bug testing now. And the only reason I've been held off is just because of actual real-life work and obviously doing these videos that have become extremely popular. But yeah, so I would probably say really soon. I mean, it could be any day now. I just need to sit down and go through it. And then that's going out the door. And then after rebuilding SmackDown Shut Your Mouth, as I've said before, Here Comes the Pain will get a tiny video soon after that showcasing things for version 11. So yeah, look forward to it.
Frita Berbero, I'm sorry if I got that totally wrong, asks, after the rebuilding series, will you do more wrestling videos?
So will I do any more wrestling videos after rebuilding SmackDown? Yes, I will actually be doing several shows. I have several things written down, so it will be, even when rebuilding SmackDown is finished, I have scripted and planned out plans for wrestling content, some video games, some not, and we'll see where that goes. So yeah.
Zeno Joestar had 3 questions. Number 1, what game is after Shut Your Mouth? Number 2, thoughts on AEW. Number 3, if you care about AEW, what are your thoughts on the Nyla Rose situation?
Okay, so what game is after SmackDown Shut Your Mouth? Well, after rebuilding SmackDown Shut Your Mouth, I think we're going to go to SmackDown 2, and that'll be the first video of 2020. I think SmackDown Shut Your Mouth is likely going to be, rebuilding SmackDown Shut Your Mouth, is likely going to be the last video of this year for rebuilding SmackDown. Of course, there'll be previews and Q&A and stuff, but I'll actually be going back to Here Comes the Pain for a video a few weeks after that to show you guys some stuff that I know a lot of people want, even me. And then yeah, I think we're going to start next year with SmackDown 2, and then maybe either, I don't know, maybe we'll, depending on my finances. So if you can help, patreon.com/ScottJ. Maybe go into WWF Raw 2, or otherwise, if not, let's go to SmackDown vs. Raw. Thoughts on AEW? Well, their debut show airs tonight as of this recording, so I hope they do extremely well. I just hope they put together really tight, well thought out TV, and I think the most important thing they need to get right is the announcing, because the announcing, as WWE has done for me since I think since No More JR and the King, and even then, I was never a Michael Cole fan even when he was on SmackDown. He was well produced for a while, but after a while, after Heyman went, it wasn't great at all. But announcing can take you out of wrestling altogether. They can make things feel irrelevant. They can make things feel unspecial. You could be watching a great match, and as a general viewer, not even realize you're watching a great match because the noise that is entering your ears has nothing to do with what is going on, and it is not even important. It's just trivial nonsense from 3 people just spewing garbage. So I think the best thing AEW can do is get their announcing team just right. I'm a personal fan of a 2-man booth, but if they can do a good 3-man booth, then great. 3-man booth has worked prior to the Attitude Era in the earlier days. 3-man booth did work with when they had, I think it was Bobby Heenan, Macho Man, and Vince. It was pretty good. So I think it can work, and we tighten those matches up. I don't want to see tons and tons of kickouts. I think some of their matches could absolutely end earlier, and when that crowd is just ready for that finish, give it to them. You can save all the kick out can be built to when there is a rivalry between 2 guys that you have built over time, where when they finally meet, because they've both run through a whole different set of people, that when the crowd is anticipating them to meet, then when they start doing the multiple kickouts, it means something. People will go crazy. I'm not a fan of that type of wrestling. I'm pretty old, I guess, old school now. But yeah, I just want them to do well. I don't even mind if they're not appealing to me directly. I just want them to appeal to the widest audience possible, because the fans that are already buying tickets to AEW shows and have been supporting them this whole time are going to continue to support them. I want them to essentially think about, and this is something I would do if I was running a wrestling company, what was the thing that made you switch on to wrestling and never switch off? You know, remember, think about the person that's not watched wrestling in a while or never watched wrestling, and hook them. You know, hook them and do what makes sense to do that and get that. And I hope they do, because competition is good for everyone. With AEW, if AEW does really well, that will only force WWE to do really well, and you don't want a stale and stagnant WWE. I see all the time people going on about how talented WWE's roster is. It's irrelevant if they don't use them correctly. So, you know, you can be the most talented person. If they hide all your talents, what are you? You know? So I hope AEW does well. By Nyla Rose situation, I'm guessing you mean the fact that the news broke, what must have been about a month ago, maybe a bit more, that I guess to a wider audience, that she's transgender, and I personally don't think it matters. Anybody that's criticizing somebody because they're now in a position where they're a pro wrestler and they're doing well, and we're just going to be like, well, you know, it doesn't really count because they're transgender. I think, get out of here, dude. Like, you do not know what that person has gone through, and you're lucky you didn't, because it's a real struggle. So no, I absolutely am 100% on Nyla Rose's side. So that's where I stand on the matter.
Masako Riwa asks, 2 questions for the Q&A. 1, what is the hardest game to mod? And 2, I saw on Twitter you follow loads of Japanese artists. What are your other interests besides WWE?
What was the hardest game to mod? Just Bring It was very hard because of the simple fact that the second you changed one thing, the whole game crashed. So it took a while to get that going. It took about 2 years before everything was worked out the way I wanted to do, before where I could seamlessly transition stuff from preview build to retail. Raw 2 is also very difficult simply because of having the steps you have to go through, there being no proper Xbox emulator, having to do it on the hardware itself. That is a pain. Also, an even bigger pain because I don't have a capture card at the moment, so I can't even show you what I'm doing on Raw 2, which sucks because I really want to show that stuff, and I would probably have done the series a little differently. I would have probably done it the year in WWE games, so it would have been like rebuilding. At the time, it would have probably been rebuilding SmackDown, Shut Your Mouth, Raw 1, and WrestleMania 18. All those episodes would have come out sort of in terms of release. So you'd have probably got 18 first, then Raw. No, would it be? It'd be Raw 1 first, right? Raw 1, 18, and then Shut Your Mouth. And I would have probably done it like that. So then around Here Comes the Pain, you would have probably got like WrestleMania 19, Raw 2, and then Here Comes the Pain. But due to my limitations of how I can capture, that is, it's a big pain. So I had to restructure I had to reorganize what my original plan for the series was. But Raw 2 probably is the hardest one to do. Then again, the GameCube games are an absolute nightmare. WrestleMania 19 is damn near uncrackable. Almost near, but the Smash Brothers community have helped me out quite a bit in that. So yeah, we'll see what we can do. So what are my interests outside of WWE? I'm going to assume outside of pro wrestling as well. Well, video games. This channel is actually going to be and do more video games and video game mods and video game restorations from, say, the late 90s to the mid 2000s. So PS1, N64, Dreamcast, going all the way up to, I suppose, the PS3, Xbox 360, and Wii. You'll see a lot of, like, I suppose, mods and docs, things like rebuilding Smackdown on that era of games specifically. But I've owned every system since the NES. I love video games. I know so many people that work in video games. I have so many friends, that are in Japan who work for developers in video games. So I love video games. I'm surrounded by it most of the day. So yeah, video games. I suppose my most favorite thing in life of an interest or hobby is Dragon Ball. I've been part of the Dragon Ball community. I mean, not really, but I've been into Dragon Ball since 1993, and I got into it through video games, ironically, through the Super Famicom. So yeah, so Dragon Ball. I was a big comic book guy growing up, so I loved comics from the late 80s all the way up to probably the mid 2000s. I still read some comics, but it's a very expensive hobby, so I don't do that very much now. But yeah, like everything from Black and White Ninja Turtles to pretty much every title in Marvel. And then with DC, I got into DC, I think it was 1992, when it was around the time the Nightfall storyline for Batman was coming on and the Doomsday arc was coming in for Superman, and then I got into DC through that. Obviously, the animated series for DC helped get me into those two. Outside of that, I generally like anime and manga. And alluding back to a previous question where somebody said that they'd noticed I've lost quite a bit of muscle mass since my first video. Yeah, I'm a huge health guy. I've been working out since I was 12. When healthy and I don't have issues with my neck or back or anything, I work out twice a day, 6 days a week. I get 1 day rest, and I split my body parts, so big into that. And I'm a bit of a foodie. I love food. So there you go. And that is it for this week's Q&A. I do know that this week's video did not feature as many questions that are related to wrestling video games, but I'm also aware that Smackdown Just Bring It isn't the most popular game in the series. In fact, amongst the first 5, it's probably the least popular. But don't worry, I'm sure for Smackdown Shut Your Mouth question and answers video, it will pretty much be flooded, so it'll probably be most of the video, if not the whole video. Next episode is Rebuilding Smackdown Shut Your Mouth, so look forward to that. There might be a video or two in between that. I have a few announcements to make, so that might happen too. As always, guys, please hit that subscribe button, and please hit that like button, and share the video to as many people as possible. If you can support me on Patreon, please do at patreon.com/ScottJ. And until next time, guys, take care.
An almost complete restoration, cut characters, restored music, championship titles, season dialogue, the original renders, arenas, and over 40 new attires. Rebuilding Smackdown Episode 3, Smackdown Shut Your Mouth, the Definitive Edition, is up next.